Welcome to Yori Relationship Trust Matrix 202, Protecting and Building. This is a bonus lesson. So this lesson isn't strictly a relationship lesson, but rather taking a principle that we just got done studying in the Protecting and Building the Yori program, and we're going to apply it to our own lives in a kind of a fun, playful, and fairly unique way. We were talking about treasure and trash. So lesson number 9 in the Yori 202 was about treasure and trash. And we talked about, treasure your treasure, trash your trash, don't treasure your trash, don't trash your treasure, and how to use treasure and trash in a relationship and how that principle works. What we're going to talk about today is how to use this treasure and trash principle just in your own life, with or without a relationship. The concept I want to start with is called treasure ex nihilo. Treasure ex nihilo is Latin for treasure out of nothing. Usually when you see this ex nihilo, it's Latin for out of nothing, normally connected to God creating the universe. That in the beginning there was nothing, and then out of this particular type of nothing, God made everything. And this context for it kind of gives us an idea of what we're doing with treasure. We're starting with a particular kind of nothing, that there's not actually anything there, and we're going to make our own treasure out of it. We can literally create treasure out of nothing. Now, here's the proof about our ability to make stuff out of nothing. Think about worry. Worry is imagining a negative. And if you understand how often do people worry, how intensely do people worry, how fired up do people get about all the things that they're worried about? What is the percentage of things that people worry about that never happen? How much of worry is just made up? Now, for some people who aren't worriers and kind of the fearful, fretting, anxiety sense, think about things you get angry about. And it's the same thing. That when you're getting angry, you're usually imagining a negative. And think about how many times that what had you angry was stuff there's no way for you to actually know. Someone cuts you off on the freeway, you're not upset that someone on the way to the hospital because they have a desperate emergency zipped in front of you on their way forward. That would be a positive imagination that would let you not be angry. Versus how many times you think, oh, they did that to me on purpose, how dare they? And we get upset because we're ascribing negative motives. Well, we can't know that either. And so essentially what we're doing very often when we're angry is we are deciding what something means. We are deciding why someone did something. And then we get angry about that. Because we don't usually get as angry about accidents, and we certainly don't get as angry when someone has a really good reason. And so commonly we will ascribe negative motives to people. Well, what are we doing? We're making it up. We don't actually know. And when people give us information, we're going based on the information. Well, if we weren't actually there and didn't actually see it, and we don't have the psychic ability to scan someone's brain to know their actual motives, most of anger is based on stuff that we make up. Most of worry is based on stuff that we make up. Now, what we make up may be accurate. But the point is, we don't know. We are having to infer. We're having to create it in our own mind. And since 90% of what we worry about never happens, that's our reminder that just because something will never happen doesn't mean that we aren't going to have an emotional reaction to that future. So sometimes we're fretting about the past or something bad that might be happening now, that may not actually be happening now, but might be happening now. Usually, we're abusing our incredible imagination to create images of a negative future that will never happen. 90%, more than 90% of the things we worry about do not happen. In all these cases, we're not responding to actual realities that we are actually experiencing. We are responding emotionally to images we are creating in our heads. Of the roughly 10% of things that we worry about that actually do come to pass, the situation was in no way improved by the worry itself. It might have been improved by the preparation that we did for it, but we are not required to fret about something in order to prepare for something. So what if we use this exact same mechanism, this exact same internal mechanism we use to worry, this exact same internal mechanism that we use to be angry about things, that we use to express our outrage over things that we see in the news, because somehow we are responding like, well, we know what happened, and what happened was this thing that I'm outraged about. And we don't actually need information. We're just making it up in our own heads. But what if we did the opposite? What if we did the opposite of worry? Now, it might be a sad state of culture and language that we have no word for the opposite of worry. You can Google opposite of worry, and you will find things on opposite of worry. But we don't have a word. We don't have a term for what is the opposite. If worry is imagining a negative future, do we have a word for imagining a positive future without any regard to whether or not it will ever happen? If we understand that worry is imagining that negative future without any connection to its probability sometimes, certainly without a connection to its pending reality, then we can infer the opposite of worry, and we'll call it HI, H-I. Happy imagination. Happy imagination. Imagining a positive. So instead of a fearful imagination, worry, instead of an angry imagination, all the things we use to be outraged, we'll use happy imagination. We will intentionally imagine a positive. And we'll use this as the opposite of worry, the opposite of outrage. Happy imagination, imagining a positive. So HI, or happy imagination, is doing the happy version of indulging our imagination. When we worry, what we worry about only actually happens about 10% of the time in any way, shape, or form. So that means it's perfectly okay to imagine things whether or not they ever happen. The version, of course, that arises naturally is a negative emotion version, but something we can always learn from negative emotion versions is we can use that same mechanism that arises and says, something must change, and say, well, how about we'll use the same thing to imagine what we do want and to enjoy the imagination. Not just to use it as a goal-setting visualization, although it is useful for that, but to use it just for the pleasure of enjoying the happy imagination. When someone buys a lottery ticket and they fantasize about what they would do with $20 million, they fantasize about the house they might buy and the car they might buy and the trips they could go on, the things that they could upgrade, and all of the things $20 million could do. They're indulging in this kind of thinking. They are imagining a future that they know full well is almost certainly not going to happen. The lottery ticket is not a financial plan. They're not buying the ticket and contacting contractors and calling their real estate agent and calling their stockbroker and going down to the dealership. That they're indulging their imagination. It is a ticket to happy imagination. It's a ticket to their high. What if we didn't need the lottery ticket to give ourselves permission to imagine happy things? The easy high is revisiting memories. Now, we talk about this in the idea of, create memory anchors, revisit them often. Happy imagination begins most simply here. Use your imagination to go back and recall happy times, revisit happy memories. If you've been there, done that, then all you have to do is remember what you've done. Remember where you've been. Remember your vacations. Remember your trips. Remember those happy dates. Remember those happy days. Remember those moments that you would like to treasure. Immerse yourself holographically in highlights of your best past experiences. And then this ability to revisit memories leads us to the next step. And this is where we really start to engage our imagination. The intermediate high is to create from experience. Creating from experience. Now you're creating something new, but it's based upon your previous experience. This is taking things you know from experience and using that past experience to imagine a potential present or future experience. So when you are revisiting a memory, say for instance, if I was in Orlando, with my kids, and I can go back, I can revisit, what was it like being there, and having the 3-bedroom condo, and having the funds that we could go to the Universal parks, and we could go to the Disney, and remember the trip. Or I could create from that experience, because I know what the parks are like, I know what the rides are like, at least as they existed at the time. But could I do that again? No, the kids are all older. So I do it again, I don't have a bunch of teenagers, now I have young adults. And I have young adults, and some of them have girlfriends, and it would be a different trip. It wouldn't be the same. But it's something that you could still do, and I could draw on the experience of what the parks are like, and then infer that, okay, if I take my now much older kids, the adult children, and take them to the park, or if I meet with my extended family, some of whom I've never met in person, it's been years since I've been out there, and we go with them and with their kids who I've never seen in person. What would that be like? And this is creating from experience, because I know what part of it is like, and I might even know what all the parts are like, but I just have never experienced the parts together. Now, this is called synthetic imagination. Synthetic imagination is basically you just synthesize with your imagination 2 or more things that you know. It's putting 2 or more things together that you know into a new thing. You can take your experiences and you can fold new people in. You can imagine doing it with the new people. Or in the case I just gave you, the same people, but now the same people older. Or if you've been to, say Disneyland, that my son and his girlfriend went to Disneyland, and if, say, they don't go for a while, they get married, they have kids, he can imagine what would it be like taking the kids to Disneyland. Even if he's never been to Disneyland with the kids, he's been to Disneyland, he knows his kids, and then he can put those together and say, oh, what would this be like? And he might decide, they're not old enough yet. They probably aren't old enough to appreciate it, because I know my kids well enough. So maybe wait another year or two. And when we start to make these calculations, we're beginning to tap into the very beginning of our synthetic imagination. And so we can use our synthetic imagination to create from experience, grabbing 2 or more things that we have personal knowledge of, and put them together. And so the very, very basic happy imagination is to revisit your memories. And the intermediate level is you create from experience. You use your memories to put new things together. You synthesize from what you know. Now, expert highs, an expert application of happy imagination, is creating from best guess. Creating from best guess. If you've never done something, but you like the idea of doing it, you can craft a happy imagination from your best guess about what it would be like. Now, something to keep in mind when you're creating from best guess is very often the anticipation of a thing feels different than the thing itself. For instance, on the fear side, I was recently teaching a young man how to drive. His very first time going on the freeway, he said, I've never been on a freeway before. I said, well, just go ahead and go on the freeway. Are you sure? It's like, yep, since you've never been on it before, we're going to stay on it longer. Okay. And once he got on the freeway, you go, oh, well, this isn't that bad. So his anticipation of driving on the freeway was much more fearful than actually driving on the freeway. Sometimes we have the same thing when we're going on best guess in a different direction. And part of it is because when you imagine a high point, you're imagining a high point, not the totality of the thing. So say, for instance, if I'm fantasizing about, taking my family, taking my friends, taking my extended family on this great, amazing Orlando trip. Well, I'm probably not imagining, well, how much would this cost? What would it take to earn that much money? I may have no idea what the weather's going to be like, how humid it's going to be, how hot it's going to be, when and how often it's going to rain. All these other pieces that would be part of the experience might not be part of the imagination. And then, of course, there's part of the assumptions about the things as they may go that may not necessarily line up with reality when you're doing best guess. But you can still craft a happy imagination out of best guess. And we're going to get to how you deal with the expectation part of it in a moment. So expert happy imagination is creating from best guess. The master level of happy imagination is creating from complete fantasy. You just make the whole thing up completely. Children are masters of happy imagination. Children do this, where they will just make up whole stories, whole scenarios. They'll pick up sticks and slay dragons. They'll pick up dirt clods and point their fingers, and they'll do a whole war. They make it up because they don't know. We can do this too. Just because kids do it doesn't mean it's a childish thing, but it's a childlike thing that a lot of us lose. So when we create from complete fantasy, we are in no way limited by reality. We can imagine anything. We can imagine being Captain America, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. We can imagine being, the Black Widow. We can imagine having superpowers. We can imagine traveling to outer space. We can imagine being a Jedi. Whatever it is we want to imagine, we can just have fun with the creative imagination. We can have fun just making it all up and knowing, of course, it's complete fantasy, just like kids do. Now, the number one objection I get to happy imagination is fear of disappointment. People don't want to imagine the possibilities of what could be because then they'll be disappointed when they don't get it. Then they have the contrast between the real life and the fantasy, and then it makes them increasingly dissatisfied and disappointed with what life is like. Well, the simple key to avoid disappointment is to distinguish between a high and an expectation. So when the kids pick up sticks or pick up their toy lightsabers and they imagine being Jedis out battling the forces of darkness in the backyard, do you think they're disappointed? I'm so sad that I don't have Jedi powers. I shouldn't play anymore because then when I'm done playing, I don't have the Jedi powers. Or when they play superhero or any of their games, and when someone plays a fantasy role-playing game or someone's playing a video game. How often do they get just heartbroken because, no, my real life isn't like that. I was playing the game and I don't really have these powers. The kids don't do that. Most people don't do that. So long as you distinguish between it's a happy imagination, it's a high, it's not an expectation. Real life isn't going to look this way. If real life looked this way, I wouldn't be using my happy imagination. I'd just be living it. I'd be connecting to it. I'd be savoring it. But I'm employing my happy imagination exactly because it's not real. And I'm enjoying the moment. When we expect something and we don't get it is when we feel disappointed. So enjoy the high and hold very, very loosely to the expectation. Don't expect it. Understand what it is. And then you don't get disappointed. Now, if you do get to actually do something, you also let go of what you expected and you connect to what's great about this. So say, for instance, I take a couple of members of my extended family. They're huge Disney fans, but they've never been to Disney World. Now, suppose they have all of these built-up expectations about what it's supposed to be like and just how amazing it would feel. And over the course of the last 10 or 15 years, they have all of these just wild expectations because they've been employing their happy imagination to imagine all of these moments. That when they get there, it's not one, pardon me, it's not one endless happy moment. Well, what you do is when you actually get to do the thing, you employ your happy imagination to enjoy. No, my goodness. Okay, let me back up a little bit. So if you do get to do something, let go of what you expected and connect to what's great about this. Let go of the happy imagination expectation and let it be what it is. And be looking for what's great about this. Now, so long as you do that well, you'll do two things. One is your happy imagination, anticipation, doesn't diminish your actual experience. And here's another really big one, is you will find great things in the reality that you would have had no way to imagine, that you might miss if you're not paying attention. So when you get to do wonderful things, keep asking, what's great about this? What is magnificent about this? What am I enjoying? What can I savor? What can I capture in my memory and take with me forever? And related to this is to practice realistic anticipation. So when you're using your happy imagination to imagine something that you do intend to do, something that you're planning on doing, anticipate realistically. Understand that you're using your high to enjoy hypothetical high points. But even great events are not one continuous high point. Understand that high points are points, not a continuous state. Realistic expectations to which you hold loosely is easy. You just understand I'm grabbing points. I can create high points. I can craft the experience so it has these moments, but we're crafting high moments. You're enjoying the ride rather than focusing on the line. You're enjoying the experience rather than being bothered by the weather. And by practicing realistic anticipation, by holding loosely to expectations, then you can employ your high and not be disappointed. You can employ your high and not have the reality diminished in any way. That then when you get there, when you get to be there and do that, you focus on what's great about this. And you zero in on all of those things. Now you can move quickly from one high to another. When we worry, and what we worried about doesn't happen, we don't get disappointed. Oh, I wasted all this emotional energy worrying about this thing, and then it didn't happen. I really wanted that disaster to happen. We don't do that, obviously. We might feel relieved. But more commonly, worriers don't feel relieved. If someone is in the habit of worry, they don't feel relieved. Just like if someone's in the habit of anger or bitterness, they don't feel relieved when the thing they're angry about turns out not to be what they were so angry about, or it actually gets fixed. They go looking instantly for the next thing to worry about, the next thing to be upset about, the next outrage. And certainly when you watch politics, you see that we just jump from one outrage to the next. So we exploit one until it seems ridiculous to be outraged about it, and then we just go find something else to be outraged about. So we can flip this the other way, use our happy imagination, and do the same thing with our high. We imagine one thing, and then we just go on to the next thing. So I had shared with you about Wendy, who was working on her Uber trip. And she has this plan, she's working it out, she's figuring out how to pull it together, how she can make it happen, how much money they're going to need, the plan for saving up the money. And she's using her happy imagination to put it together, to pre-enjoy the experience, to pre-enjoy Paris, to pre-enjoy the cruises, to pre-enjoy St. Petersburg and Barcelona and all the other stops, to be looking through the very shore excursions and to pre-enjoy those using her happy imagination. She gets on a high happy imagination when she does this. But she also has that ability to hold loosely to expectation. She understands where her probabilities are. She understands, okay, I'm still 2 years away from actually making it happen. I'm in the pre-planning phases to see what's possible, what will it take, and put together the strategy that could conceivably get us there. And once I have all that put together, now we put an actual plan in place that we start to execute to make it happen. And even then, she won't know for sure if she's pulled it off until things are actually booked. And she knows there's a few issues potential that could come up with that. If she doesn't get it, she's not going to be devastated. She's not going to feel like, oh, I wasted all this time anticipating. All those happy thoughts I had suddenly get turned into trash because it didn't actually happen. No, she'll keep all of that treasure. She's She goes, all right, well, that ended up not being the deal. Keep all the treasure. It doesn't turn into trash just because it didn't happen. And it's on to the next thing, on to the next high, on to the next happy imagination. Just because one thing doesn't work out doesn't mean you didn't have tons of treasure getting to imagine it. And then it's just on to the next thing. So you move quickly from one high to another. So just to review, you can create treasure out of nothing. Ex nihilo, out of nothing. The opposite of worry is to create a high. H-I, happy imagination. Imagining a positive, indulging, immersing holographically in happy thoughts. Revisit memories for the easy version, things where you have been there, you have done that, you have memory-based references. Intermediate, next step up, create from the experience. Take the pieces that you know where you have been there, done that, you know this, and make some new things out of it. Update it, upgrade it. Expert high, create from your best guess. Get the information. We did a high a few months ago about a visit to Hobbiton in New Zealand. Now, I've never been to New Zealand. The people I was doing it with have never been to New Zealand. So we're really creating from best guess. Boy, did we do a good job. And we had a good time doing it, too. The master high is creating from complete fantasy. And you avoid the fear of disappointment by holding loosely the expectation, practicing realistic anticipation. And then you just move quickly from one high to another. Now, closely related to this, and of course touching on this from the fact that we can create highs out of memories, is treasure out of something. Treasure out of something instead of treasure out of nothing. If treasure can be created out of nothing, well, then it can more easily be created out of something. It's all in how you play with it. Simple secret. Playfully romanticized drama. Playfully romanticized drama. Play with reality. Romanticize the mundane. Add positive drama where blasé might be more normal. Underscore positive drama. Positive drama. Not just drama. Usually when we say drama, we mean negative drama. Positive drama. Playfully, having fun with it. Basically, if there's a boring way to view things or a fun way to view things, have fun. If there's a flat way to see life or a playful way to see life, choose play. Examples. Pina Colada Quest, an adventure drama made out of something very ordinary. So I've told this story before where, I had a lady, she wanted a Pina Colada Slurpee. Seemed like an interestingly specific craving. She said, well, if they have Pina Colada, that's great. If not, it's not that big a deal. But boy, would a Pina Colada Slurpee taste good right now. So off we went. Now, as we're going, I'm crafting this whole story. The knights head off on the quest for the Pina Colada Slurpee, knowing that it is in the treasure trove of a 7-Eleven somewhere in the city. We don't know where, we don't know if, but we will go out and we will seek this. And it's this ongoing story on the whole drive, and every red light is a challenge. Like, we face the challenge of the red light on Navajo Road. Can we overcome this with a little bit of patience, a little bit of strategy? Let's green, we go! Timing was perfect, we got through it. And getting to play this kind of whole thing, it made the whole evening fun. Now, ultimately, what did we just do? We went to 7-Eleven, we got a Pina Colada Slurpee at like the third 7-Eleven we went. Now, how else could we have played that? You said, okay, fine, if you want a stupid Pina Colada Slurpee, great, we'll go to, they don't have it here. All right, let's go to the next ones. And one of the stupidest ones was going to have a stupid Pina Colada. And it could have been a miserable time. Instead, it was a playful time. And then it kind of became a thing, where every once in a while, she'd just look and get this little gleam, and I was like, can we go on the Pina Colada Quest? And then off we go, searching out 7-Elevens. And, we might have hit up to 7 7-Elevens at once. And we kind of would pre-decide, well, how many are we willing to go to? Some of us we only are willing to go to 2 or 3 of them. We have to go to at least 2, or it doesn't count as a quest. And we would go seeking out the Pina Colada Slurpee. Now, sometimes we find it at the very first one. And, quest is over. We win. And it's romanticizing. in a positively dramatic way. Something as simple as, I'm in the mood for this. All right, well, let's have a lot of fun and let's go do it. Now, this kind of thing can take practice. Most people have the skill set necessary to gripe and complain for half an hour or more at a time. Most people have the skill set and the experience to fret about things for half an hour or an hour at a time. I've seen people who manage to complain about things or fret about things or bewail things for days, even weeks at a time, when there's no new information. Nothing has changed, but boy, can they just go on and on. I was just listening to a gentleman whose name may or may not be familiar with you. It's Wayne Dyer. And he was talking about how he would jog sometimes indoors, inside the hotels, depending on the weather outside. And there's one particular time, he has a speech to give the next morning, and he comes by, and this woman is just berating her husband. And he learned the whole history of this relationship. He learned the whole status with each other and exactly what he did and how often he's apparently done it, which evidently is forever and all the time. And so because every time he ran his loop, it was going on for 45 straight minutes at least, because he doesn't know how soon before he got there it started. This constant berate with no new information was going on without let up. Now, he assumes the guy must have been in there too, because she was yelling at somebody. But this was evidently also going on in front of children without let up. Now, what material did she have to build this whole tirade with? Nothing new. She'd exhausted her core material at least one time through in the first 5 or 10 minutes. But she kept cycling back through again and maintaining the intensity the whole time. So we do this. We as human beings have the capability of doing this, where we can be upset for a long time. We can be worried for a long time. We can be despondent for a long time with no new information. Well, we can do it the other way around too. With no new information, we play with stuff. We have fun with stuff. We be dramatic with stuff. And we go get more information. Just like someone who is determined to be upset or determined to be scared or determined to be despondent will find a lot of information. Sometimes they'll even make up information. I was working with one particular child one time. Boy, was he committed to his whining. And he finally exhausted his material. He'd cycled around it so many times that it began to seem silly to stay there. So then he burst into tears again, like brand new, fresh. But now he's upset about something completely different. Now he's upset about something that happened in school 2 weeks ago. And then he bursts into tears again after another 15 or 20 minutes about something completely different again, which, as it turned out, had absolutely zero bearing on reality whatsoever. And that he could keep this up for hours just by making up a new thing to be upset about and to whine about and to complain about, whether it was real or not. The last thing was that he was desperately despondent because they were having to move and he was going to miss all of his friends and the people that he liked, and he liked living in San Diego. And when I talked to his parents, found out, no, we're not moving. But boy, was he despondent about it, even though it wasn't happening. Now, what if we take the same power and we employ it on purpose in a positive way? We be dramatically positive, romantically positive. We express our love and affection, our sense of adventure and play, just as endlessly committed as some of us can do depression, which takes a lot of practice. Some of us have a lot of practice. We can do anger, another thing a lot of us have a lot of practice on. Just as we can do fear, a lot of us, boy, are some people good at worrying. And I got to admire that skill, because that kind of worrying is exhausting for me. I just don't have the stamina. But I can do happy imagination, and I'm energized, so that's easy for me. But it takes practice, because whatever's the most alien to you will be exhausting when you start. You may start off, say, on your own pina colada quest, and you go, yes, let's go find a pina colada Slurpee at the treasure trove of 7-Eleven. All right, I'm out of material. Let's just go get a Slurpee. And that might be where you start. And that's okay. Just keep going. Keep getting better. Just like in martial arts, you begin as a white belt. What's white belt mean? White belt just means you are who you are. You know what you know. You can do what you can do. Maybe that's a lot. Maybe that's nothing. Maybe you're so far behind the starting line, you feel like you're going to have to spend your first year training just to be good enough to feel like you know nothing. That's okay, too. What do you do to get to be black belt? You just keep going. So no matter what your white belt at this positive drama looks like, no matter what your white belt looks like for this playfulness, this having fun, this adventuresome, this very romanticized way of looking at things and enjoying things, let yourself be a white belt. And then get a little bit better. The yellow belt, orange belt. And as you work on it, remember a black belt can take 4 to 6 years, sometimes 8 to 10 years. And if someone's willing to spend a decade working on a black belt, wouldn't it be worth spending a decade working on being happy, having fun, enjoying your life, getting to have that deep, abiding, playful, adventuresome enjoyment that makes waking up in the morning fun and exciting, that lets you look at life and enjoy it. Now, here's a simple secret. The power of positive metaphors. The power of positive metaphors. A knight in shining armor, referring to one another as sir or dame. Being a king or a queen, a prince or a princess, a lord and lady. Now, too often we use negative metaphors. The old ball and chain. Or the day before the wedding is my last day of freedom. Referring to a spouse as a child is a negative metaphor. I mean, you don't literally mean that, my husband is 7 years old. But what you mean is your metaphor for your husband is he's a kid. So he's a bratty kid or a temperamental kid, or my wife is immature. She's like a immature 12-year-old that can't do anything. And these are negative metaphors. Instead, use positive metaphors. And positive metaphors can come from, or they can inspire nicknames. So someone's like, especially when you get nicknames related to animals, a lot of times those are metaphors. When you call someone your bunny or bear, or someone's your tiger. These are metaphors that convey an emotional meaning. And you have to be careful some of those are metaphors because they can have very different meanings sometimes. So when you talk about, my lady is my princess. Well, that can have a positive connotation that, I love her, I adore her, she's like the Disney princess. But also sometimes it's in a negative context. Yeah, she thinks she can get whatever she wants, and she doesn't do anything. She just demands everything. And so when you're using the metaphors, just be aware that sometimes particular metaphors can have multiple meanings. Like when someone's, your man's your king. Well, does that mean that he says what he wants and he gets what he wants because it's good to be the king, and if he wants it, he gets it? Everything goes his way, nothing ever goes your way? Or does being a king or queen mean he's responsible? He takes charge. He handles the leadership. He takes care of me. And with the metaphor of the king and the queen, well, some people see the metaphor as the king's in charge and the queen's there to look pretty and sit next to the king. Some people see the king and the queen are as partners. So as you build your metaphor, understand what you mean by your metaphor. And when you're playing for things like someone's your bunny, I've heard people think that, that's wonderful and that's cute. And I've heard other people, that's just insulting. Well, again, the metaphor and the power of the metaphor depends upon how it's taken. So someone thinks, the bunny is weak and it's scared. Some other people think, the bunnies are cute and they're playful and they have fun. And so it depends on how do you use it? What do you mean by it? Just as a couple, as an individual. And even for yourself, how do you see yourself? To make use of powerful, positive metaphors for yourself. And what will help anchor you to you being your highest and best you. And how will that work? Sometimes it can be a character, like you're my Superman. You're my hero. Now, another simple secret, and this is a relational secret, is high point conversations. High point conversations. Make plans to talk about high points. When you start, it might be a difficult conversation to have. Why? Because in our culture, we practice complaining. In our culture, we practice criticizing. We practice condemning. We practice that outrage. We practice worry. We practice bitterness. We practice depression. All of these negative things our culture coddles, supports, or encourages. We don't tend to practice the positive. So when it's negative, our culture seems to foster long, passionate discussion and debate about stuff we're angry about stuff we're afraid of, about stuff we're despondent about. And we're really good at expecting everyone else to understand my anxiety, my pain, my issues, my history, while at the same time expressing very little understanding and compassion for the same thing in someone else. So imagine for a moment that someone says, well, I need special accommodation because of 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you're in relationship with someone who says, okay, but I need special accommodation for A, B, C, D, E, and F. And if both of them desperately have to have the other person be in total compliance with their individual needs, and that their needs sabotage their ability to provide for the other person's needs, then there would be some understanding of how hard it is to do something someone else's way. How challenging sometimes empathy can be for someone who's in pain. And how much self-will, willpower, how much maturity, how much responsibility it takes to be able to do that. That quite frankly is beyond a lot of people. Not because it's not in them to be able to, but because we don't teach people how to do this in our culture. I think we should. So, have the high point conversation. Talk about the good times. When it's positive, most of us are not nearly as experienced as about the negative. And even when we can talk about the high points, we don't connect with them. But if I'm upset, and all this intensity. But then we're talking about habit. Oh, yeah, remember that one thing? Oh, yes, this was really, really good. And, I really enjoyed it, and it really meant a lot to me. And you go, that's pretty flat for a high point. What if we went the other, like, yeah, when that thing happened, that bugged me. I didn't like it. And at the time, I was furious. I mean, now I've let it go. I've forgiven it. But, yeah, stuff like that still bugs me. Oh, but this high point. Oh, let me tell you about this high point. This was amazing. Just being able to actually be there, to smell the smells and to see the sights and to be able to listen to the sounds and be immersed in it. Oh, my gosh, this was magnificent. And the positive passion you deeply connect to. And the negative passion, you're a little detached from. You dial down the negative, dial up the positive. You did that without any factual things in your life changing. How much more fun would you have? As you know, good things and bad things happen to everyone. So it might take practice. Go ahead and practice. Let yourself be the white belt and practice until you have black belt level performance. The first one might be only a few minutes long because, how often do we do this? And the positive passion might not be so passionate. So I've got a couple of people here live right now who got to jump off the stratosphere in Las Vegas. Yeah, and then you get smiling and laughter coming from the back there. Now, what are they going to like? Oh, yeah, do you remember that awesome time we jumped off the stratosphere? Yep. And then you're done. I mean, some people, that might be all they can do. But then as you practice it more, it's like, oh, yeah, I remember that jump. Do you remember the feeling of just walking into the Stratosphere Casino and going up the steps and knowing that we have this appointment and just how my heart rate was already beginning to speed up in anticipation. And when we got there and we checked in and we gave them our names and we go, okay, it's official. I'm here. They have my name. And they call us in the back. And you get to enjoy all of the pieces, and there's that passion and intensity that's like, and then stepping off to the edge, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not sure I want to do this, but my husband's behind me, and there's no way to back down without going past him, and all my friends are down there waiting for me to jump and then jump. Ah! Wait, there's a gorgeous view out here. And being able to have that kind of fun with it. How many times can you enjoy that jump if you get to revisit that, every once in a while? If all it turns into is one quick experience, 10 seconds, jump, land, unhook, done, it's not worth $140. But what if you get to go back and revisit it dozens of times with positive passion? And you do that 14 times. Now you spent $10 for every time of excitement. What if you go back and visit 140 times? Then you just spent $1 for each period of excitement. Getting to share the story, look at the pictures. And sometimes you can really enjoy some of these things by expressing it out loud, making your gestures and even when you're by yourself. And boy, can life be fun when you do that. Now, in my case, I'm 50. I have had a lot of high points in my life. I've had a lot of low points in my life. I've had things that scared me. I've had things that enraged me. I've had things that I've been despondent about. I've had the whole range of emotion. So if I wanted to be miserable, I've got the material to be miserable. If I wanted to be bitter, I've got the material to be bitter. If I want to be timid and fearful, I've got the material to be timid and fearful. If I want to be depressed, Lord knows I have enough material to be as depressed as I want for as long as I want. But if I want to be happy, I have a lot of material for that too. If I want to be playful, boy, do I have a ton of material I can work with. If I want my life to be this amazing collage of high points, I've got the high points to do that with. Now, if you've had high points with a partner, have the conversation with your partner. Talk about some of the great things you got to do. It'd be like me sitting down with my wife and saying, thinking about the wedding. I remember when I saw the doors open and you walked in and my heart skipped a beat and my eyes just welled just a little bit thinking, oh, dear Lord, this woman is about to marry me. And that could be a great high point to talk about. So like, do you remember the first time we got to hold our baby? We got to hold Ariana in our arms and just that overwhelming feeling of, look what we did. And revisit that high point. And especially now she's older. Now you're getting ready to walk her down the aisle. And you can enjoy that moment of birth. To be able to enjoy is like walking on the Black Sands beach in Hawaii again and again. Getting to enjoy riding on the Jurassic Park ride or going into the Harry Potter's Wizarding World at Universal for the first time again and again. The feeling of just diving into the water at the beach at Waikiki and how warm that water is and just how impressively blue the ocean is in the middle of the Pacific. Or what it felt like sitting down for that formal dining night in your nice dress, in your tuxedo, being served a lobster dinner on the cruise ship. Being able to order 3 lobster dinners in a row because you don't have to pay for them. They're already included. And they're included whether you eat 1 or whether you eat 3. So I'm going to have 3 because I can fit it and it's lobster. And how much fun can you have when you can go back through decades of high points? Sometimes even if your life has maybe objectively been lousy by many considerations, you can still find those high points. It can be as simple a thing as, I remember when I was a kid. And we didn't have anything, and I remember the holes we're wearing in my shoes and stuff, and we couldn't afford to get new shoes at Goodwill yet. And we certainly had nothing to play with, and I remember I found a baseball up against the fence of the Little League park. And oh, we got to play catch. Oh, Lord, that was so much fun. It was like a little piece of treasure, even though it was that old beat-up baseball. And imagine how much fun someone can have reliving a high point of finding an old, beat-up, abandoned baseball. Because to that kid in that moment, that was treasure. So it doesn't have to be spectacular. It doesn't have to be cruises and Orlando and Las Vegas and Hawaii. It can be those simple moments. The moments of a touch. The moments of a kiss. The moments of a nice long hug. The moments of connection. Something as simple as, I remember the first time really getting to wrap my arms around you and just feeling like we melted together. And when you do that, when you're actually holding someone, you'll feel that feeling again of melting together. And that as you go searching out some of the treasures, it'll enrich your life. Treasure enriches life. So create the high points. Craft the experiences to create high points in your life. Notice when they happen. Because not all high points are created intentionally. Some high points just happen. And savor the high points. And they don't have to be high points to anybody else. Just high points to you. I was searching online. And just by complete chance, when I was looking at an article on 3D printing, I came across this really awesome 3D printed metal polyhedron dice. And I got this kind of happy feeling. Now, I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons with a group for a while, but boy, do I have a lot of great high point memories of some of the adventures down over the years. And just that moment of being able to see that, it was a surprising moment, and I paused to savor some of my old gaming high points. And then amplify high points. So when they arise, whether you created them yourself, don't just even savor them, but amplify them. I mean, think about the Pina Colada quest. Is there anything objective in, I'm in the mood for a Pina Colada Slurpee. All right, let's go find one. That is a high point? Or did you make it a high point by pouring in romance and adventure? And then when we finally get it, it's like, oh, you found my Pina Colada Slurpee, my hero. You have saved the kingdom, thank you. Is there anything I can do to give my brave knight a reward? And, how much fun can you have with stuff like that? So amplify your high points. Create them, savor them, amplify them, and use memory anchors. When you find the high points, find a way to memorialize it. It can be as simple a thing as keep a takeaway menu from a restaurant. Buy a souvenir when you're at the theme park. Pick something up when you're traveling to remind you of the place. There's someone who just picks up rocks. They have just a small little, not anything special rock, and then it just goes in the little baggie, and something gets written down on the baggie about what it is and where it's from. Or sand from beaches. This is from, the beach in Clearwater, Florida. This is from the beach in Miami. This is from the beach, at Waikiki, whatever it is. Now, be aware if it's like rare sand, like green sand or black sand, there's probably signs posted that basically says, don't take the sand. Then, find a pebble or something. And what it is a very tangible thing to hold on to. It's like, oh, yes. This sand is from Miami. Now, is there anything you can look at the bag? Oh, yeah, that's Miami sand, and that's Clearwater sand. Not really. But what it is, it's a tangible reminder. The little stones, the otherwise meaningless stones, it's tangible reminder. You pick it up and you hold on to it. It's like, yes, this is from Mauna Kea on the big island of Hawaii. When we were up there and seeing the observatories. And it's just a meaningless little stone. And it's just this tiny little rock. Just as a reminder, as a tangible reminder, that this is from the top of Mauna Kea. So treasure enriches your life. Create the high points. Savor the high points when they happen. Just really connect to them. What am I seeing? What am I looking at? What am I hearing? What am I listening to? What am I feeling? What am I touching? How am I connecting with the meaning of this inside? And amplify it, dial it up. How great can we make this? How fun can we make this? How playful can we make this? And then use the memory anchors, which don't have to be anything terribly spectacular. And of course, you know the easy one that we do all the time these days is just take a lot of pictures. Take pictures. And then revisit them often. Create treasure out of nothing. You don't need to actually be there and do that to create the treasure. Tap into your memories. Synthesize them to put in new things. Create it completely from fantasy. So whether you're doing the simple of revisiting memories, you're doing the intermediate of synthesizing stuff, you're creating from experience, you're doing the more advanced level of doing best guess, or you're being completely fanciful. Create treasure out of nothing. Create treasure out of something. Dial it up. Be romantic. Be adventurous. Positive drama. Just like we talk, happy imagination. Positive drama. And practice positive passion. Negative passion is so easy. Our culture will support it. Probably our friends and our family will support it. They'll even drive it. They'll feed it. Practice positive passion. Try to think about the last handful of times you felt emotional intensity. If you're like the average person, the emotional intensity was probably negative. It was probably anger, fear, sadness, hopelessness. What if you reflected back on the last 3 times you felt emotional intensity, and 2 of those 3 times it was positive passion? It was joy. It was adventure. It was excitement. Yeah, stuff is still going to scare you. Yeah, you're still going to worry about stuff. Yeah, you're still going to get angry about stuff. Yeah, stuff is still going to hurt your feelings. Yeah, you're going to be despondent from time to time, disappointed from time to time. That's just part of life. But instead of living there, instead of most of our dialed up intensity being there, what if our dialed up intensity was on the positive stuff? Be excited about the solutions more than you were upset about the problem. Play with stuff and have fun with your life. And create the treasure. Dial down the trash. And be a wealthy, enormously rich person, compiling your vaults of treasure that you make out of nothing, that you make out of something, that you seek out and hang on to and keep. And deal with the trash. Get rid of the trash. You don't want to keep the trash. Don't lock up the trash in your vault. Don't pile up the trash in your hoard. And a big thing, practice these skills. Let yourself be a white belt. And practice through yellow and orange and purple and brown and until you are a black belt at romance and affection. Until you are a black belt at adventure and play. Until you are a black belt at positive passion and treasure creation. And when you do this, oh dear God, is life amazing. So do these things and enjoy. Thank you.